Picture this, August 16th, 2004. A wall of water just rips through a tiny, beautiful English village, and it threatens to literally wipe it right off the map. This is the incredible story of the Boscastle Flood, one of the most extreme weather events in modern British history, and, the even more incredible story of how it was survived.
So let's just start with the numbers, because they're what make this story so absolutely mind-bending. In just a couple of hours, this catastrophic flood sweeps away cars, smashes through over 100 buildings. The damage was just immense. But then you look at that last number. 0. Not a single person died. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, that's the story we're going to dig into today.
All right, so to understand what happened, we first have to get our heads around where it happened. Let's take a look at the kind of fatal geography of this otherwise perfect little village.
Okay, to really get this, we need one key term, the drainage basin. Now, the easiest way to think about it is like a giant natural funnel. Seriously, every single drop of rain that falls on this whole landscape gets collected and channeled down toward one single point. And in this story, that point was, you guessed it, the village of Boscastle.
And this really shows why Boscastle was basically a perfect geographical trap. It's nestled right at the bottom of this super steep-sided valley, exactly where two rivers, the Valency and the Jordan, come together. All that water from that huge drainage basin gets funneled into this one tiny, narrow exit point. It was a disaster just waiting for one more ingredient.
So you've got this uniquely vulnerable village. Now let's add that final, devastating piece of the puzzle, the storm itself. On August 16th, 2004, it's like nature cooked up the absolute perfect storm of meteorological conditions, and it parked it right over Boscastle. You had warm, moist air coming off the Atlantic, hitting the hills of Cornwall, which forced it to shoot upwards and form these massive storm clouds. The crucial thing, though, is that these clouds got stuck in a slow-moving weather front. They didn't just pass over, they just stayed there, dumping a frankly unbelievable amount of rain on one tiny area.
Get a load of this number, 200 millimeters. To put that into perspective for you, that's about the amount of rain the area would normally get over two entire months, and it all fell in just a few hours. Insane.
Yeah, with that much rain coming down that fast, the ground just couldn't take it. It was like a completely soaked sponge. And what happens when a sponge is full? Every single drop of rain from that point on had absolutely nowhere to go but to flow right over the surface and straight into the rivers.
And this is the result. A truly staggering amount of water, 20 million cubic meters, all of it surging down that narrow valley. It wasn't just a river anymore. It was a liquid battering ram, and it was aimed directly at Boscastle. Right, this is the critical moment. This is the turning point, where a really bad flood became an absolute village-destroying catastrophe. And it all came down to one single choke point.
So, the key to the whole disaster was the village bridge. As this torrent raged downstream, it was carrying tons and tons of debris, trees, branches, you name it. All this wreckage piles up against the arches of the bridge, creating this unstable temporary dam. The water just starts backing up behind it, rising higher and higher, and the pressure is just building and building to an unbearable point. And then,
when that dam of debris finally burst, it wasn't just a flood anymore. No way. It was a wave, a 3-meter-high wall of water, unleashed in an instant, tearing through the streets of Boscastle with just unbelievable destructive force.
And that wave brings us to the immediate aftermath. The story of this flood is really a tale of two extremes. Just immense, unbelievable destruction, and an equally immense effort to save lives.
The power of that surge was absolutely devastating. I mean, this slide really gives you a sense of the sheer scale of it all. Around 100 buildings, people's homes, shops, even the famous Museum of Witchcraft, were damaged or just completely destroyed. And get this, in the car park, 76 cars were just picked up by the current and washed away like they were toy cars.
and this quote just brilliantly illustrates the human drama that was unfolding. I mean, just try to imagine the terror of being in that situation. You're forced to scramble onto your own roof or cling to a tree as this torrent of water just destroys everything below you. This was the reality for over 100 people that day. And this slide right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the Boscastle story. On one side, you have a staggering 15 million pounds in damage, but right next to it, you have the most important number of all, 0 fatalities. It's an absolutely remarkable outcome, and it was only possible because of a massive and truly heroic helicopter rescue operation in the worst possible conditions you can imagine.
So, after all that, how does a community possibly come back from that level of devastation? Well, let's look at how Boscastle didn't just rebuild, they completely re-engineered themselves for the future.
Yeah, the response wasn't just about patching things up. Oh no. This was a masterclass in modern flood defense. They analyzed every single point of failure, and they addressed it. As you can see here, that narrow river channel, they widened and deepened it to hold way more water. That old, low bridge, the critical point of failure, was replaced with a new one with a much higher, wider arch, specifically designed so debris could just pass right through. They even raised the car park. This wasn't a repair job. It was a blueprint for how vulnerable communities everywhere can adapt.
And here's the truly unexpected twist in the tale. You'd think, after a disaster like that, the huge media attention would scare tourists away, right? Well, it actually had the opposite effect. People became fascinated by the village's story of survival and resilience. And believe it or not, tourism actually boomed, which really helped the local economy get back on its feet.
Ultimately, Boscastle learned its lesson the hard way and built back stronger, a real testament to smart engineering and just incredible community spirit. But the whole story leaves us with a pretty critical question for our time, doesn't it? In a world with an increasingly uncertain climate and more extreme weather, can any defense ever truly be floodproof?